Greetings, it is I, Tentus Naravan Dracovin, Lord and Emperor of the Dracovin Empire, and welcome. It is time to continue my discussion on anime series, where I review them for you, and then give you some suggestions how to use them in your big eyes, small mouth games, your BESM games. But really, remember, you can adapt these to any role-playing game system. I'm just giving you those basics that will help you along the way. So, this week I have two more suggestions from you, the audience, and of course I have a inspiration from one of the previous suggestions we talked about, and we're still going back in time, and we finally hit our first series from 2014. I've talked about all the ones that came out in 2015, 2016, and, well, this year up till now, as much as I wanted to. Exciting thing. And I will note that I will be soon starting up the ones from 2017, the next season of it, the spring season, which has been going on now. And I'm not sure if I'm going to continue with the suggestions you have, split between some of the suggestions and history, or just do history for a bit. We'll see. That depends on how many more suggestions you have for me. So if you have any for an anime series, or anything else you think would be cool to add to a BESM game, suggest it. I'm willing to do TV series, books, anything like that. I will do some of the research for it, come up with some great suggestions, learn all about it for you, even if it's something that I'm not familiar with. I'm more willing to learn and share with you. But before we dive too much into that portion of it, why don't we start with the series? I had, as I said, two more suggestions for you. Zatch Bell and Place to Place. Let's start with Zatch Bell. So Zatch Bell, we find that 100 Mondo are sent to Earth every 1,000 years. These Mondo come from, of course, the Mondo world, and they have to bond with humans. And they come with these books that are powerful spell books that the humans use to have the Mondo cast powerful spells. The bonds that deepen between the Mondo and the human mean the spells become more and more powerful. The Mondo battle it out, and the losers have their books burned. And this goes on until the last Mondo with a book is standing, who then will become crowned king of the Mondo world. We focus on Kyo, who ends up meeting Zatch Bell, a Mondo. The two of them bond and become powerful partners that begin to seek to reform the system here. They see the cruelty inherent in this system and wish for it to become a better system, that the way that the next king is chosen is much different than it is. They meet some friends with similar minds along the way, defeat rivals, enemies, all on a path for Zatch to eventually become king. Now, this is, of course, an adventure when we talk about the genres. They travel around a lot of places, visit interesting places, go to many places to compete with other Mondo. It's, of course, a comedy. A lot of funny things happen along the way, and there's a lot of comedic situations that happen between Kyo and Zatch as they deepen their bond, because they're a very interesting pair of people that you don't think would really get along. And, of course, it's a fantasy. There's magical powers, spell books. The interesting nature of Zatch himself, the fact that he does not have a memory of when he was in the Mondo world and only remembers being here on Earth. Interesting little facts like that make it a very fanciful series, and the magic, it's his lightning abilities, which you see very early on in those first episodes. I rate this one a... Now, I, of course, watched a good chunk of the anime and read through a bunch of the manga, and the thing is about it is it didn't drive me into much enjoyment as a lot of other people probably could. It's actually a really interesting series, and it's an interesting take on the sort of partner type. But traditionally, this is more for a type for fighting monsters or something like that. But this is a very interesting take on it, which is why I think it is a very interesting anime to check out. I would definitely think it's a very cool way of running in BESM, but, you know, again, not my top pick, though. But let's talk about using it in a BESM game. So, of course, I would recommend 300 points. You're going to make your characters humans, that each are going to have their own Mondo bonded to them. And effectively, they're going to be the masters of the spell books and manipulating them and basically giving some orders to the Mondos to help them along. They will technically be independent creatures, but they will fairly well follow the instructions of the humans. The thing is, you're going to be a group of characters that are going to have a similar like mind. The Mondos they're bonding with want to make things better for the system, and they're uniting together to face against all the other ones, basically beat it down. When they're the final ones, They could easily then fight it out in very, honorable combat kind of things. But they want to make sure all the ones that might be trying to become king for bad, negative, evil reasons are going to be eliminated. So you're going to work together towards that to fight against the others as a united team. And, of course, developing the relationships between each other, trying to balance out, of course, the normal lives that you as the humans will have, and the bonds that you're going to have with your Mondo are going to be important things. And, of course, there always should be a little bit of comedy there, because the relationship should never be just cut and dry. Have a little rockiness in there that's going to add just a little bit of fun to it. Now, the next one I want to talk about is Achikochi, or Place to Place. Our series focuses on Sumiki, who's this kind of small, tiny girl, often shown with little, kind of cat ears, who powerful punch. She's kind of devastating. And she really is in love with her friend, Io. Io, who's this kind of tall, easygoing. The fact is, then they have their normal relationship in school, and of course, they are going along that Sumiki does not want to confess her love to Io. But every one of their friends knows that it's there and can read it on her face. Io doesn't notice whatsoever, because that's just not in his nature to notice those sort of things. So the relationship between the two continues to develop along with the adventures that they have together and the adventures that they have with their friends, who each are unique individuals in and of themselves that add a little bit to the entire group dynamic and the way things work. Of course, we focus on their daily lives and the various little adventures that they tend to get themselves into by chance. Sometimes dealing with the fact that the two of those never really get together, Io and Sumiki, having that attempts to drive that relationship together, or just doing events where maybe it might get together. You never know. Now, for the genres for this one, it of course is a romantic comedy. It's the definition of it. The fact that the two of them never really get together, and there's always something silly going on, and each of them is a character in and of itself in this group of friends that's there. It's also a slice of life. We focus on their daily lives and the adventures that they go on throughout their lives. At school, at work, bonding together. But it much more is, though, a school anime, I would call it. Because as much as they bond and with the out-of-school time, maybe sometimes working and such, the main focus is at the time that they have together at school and the bonding that they have there related to that. So if they are meeting at homes, maybe it's to do homework or something like that. So it always has this school focus. Now, I rate this one a 4. It's one of the better romantic comedies, I would say. It's very cute, kind of chuckly. Definitely has some good feelings, and the romance isn't so much that's going to hit you over the head if you're one that doesn't particularly like romance. Now, I'm using this one in a BESM game. It's pretty easy, actually. 120 points. You're going to make your characters a group of friends, and perhaps one or more of your friends you're going to have some kind of relationship with. It's going to assume that probably there's not going to be complex webs amongst it, that there'll be two people that generally like each other, maybe one really likes the other, and then we have maybe another pair or something, depending on the number of players you have. But regardless of the depths of the romance you want to develop, the point of it will be that you'll have little comedic situations while your characters spend time together at school, at home, at work, bonding, going on adventures together, having fun together, doing things that they would do just in a normal life. And it's the situations that they get into which will help either develop relationships between each other or add to some comedic elements that might just end up that way because of the nature of the relationships between each other, which is an important thing that your characters should develop, the relationships between each other. Any sort of eccentricities you build into your characters should connect to the relationships that they share with each other, the unusual natures of either the relationships or just the fun things that result because of these strange parts about your characters as you develop them, interacting with each other. Now let's move on and talk about the other two I wanted to mention. First off, one that I was inspired with from last week. Sasami, Magical Girls Club, or Sasami Mahou Shoujo Club. This is yet another sort of magical girl spin-off to the Tenchi Muyo series starring Sasami. So much like we talked about last week with Magical Project S, well, this one's unique in the way it does things. We, of course, once again focus on Sasami, who is a young girl that was born with magical powers at a young age. Her parents instructed her to hide her magical powers because it was very unusual and, she could get in trouble with people. It's not something normal. But starting a new year of school, she meets a transfer teacher, Washu, and her mysterious pet Ryuyoki. It turns out Washu is there to help train a number of young girls in their magical abilities. And so she recruits Sasami and 4 other girls into the cooking club, which all of them basically begin to learn about their magical powers and develop them and become magical girls. Along the way, they do eventually visit the magical world where Washu is originally from and learn more about their own abilities, the relationships with each other, and developing their abilities that they become stronger at them, that they're better with the magic that they have intrinsic to them. Now this, of course, is a magical girl anime. You can't deny that portion of it. It's yet again a magical girl. It's a different take on a magical girl than, let's say, the last one we talked about last week was with Sasami. It's not so directly magical girl. We're not fighting monsters of the weaker. We're just learning about magical powers as a magical girl. In that retrospect, it's also definitely a fantasy. There's a magical world. There's all kinds of magical abilities, magical spells, etc., that makes it very fanciful. And of course, though, it's a school. Because we focus on the school so much. Washu's a teacher there. Their magic learning club is the cooking club. So the focus on school is very heavy here. Now, if I'm rating this one, I would rate it a 3. I think it's a very good one. It's unique in the way that they take things, and I liked it because, of course, I'm a fan of Tenchi Muyo, and that's why I got into it in the first place. And it does have a catchy opening theme, I do have to say. But the overall storyline is a little hard to go through, and the overarching themes, it doesn't hold up as well, and I think that's why I don't rate it quite as well. It does have a satisfying ending. It has 2 sort of seasons to it that each have their own sort of satisfying ending. It's just some of the lead up into them, especially in the second season, I felt wasn't quite as good, and that's why I didn't rate it as high. Now, if you're using this in a BESM game, I recommend 250 points. You're going to make your characters a group of people learning to master their magical abilities. Now, granted, if you want it to be all magical girls, that's fine. But as they saw when they visited the magical world, there are technically boys that have magic, not just girls. So if one of your characters wants to be a boy, don't stop them. Or if they just want to stick with the entire idea of them is of magical girl, also don't stop them. Now, the fact is that you're going to be going to a school, have these basic magic powers, and they're going to meet a teacher-like figure like Washu. Or you could use a Washu if you really wanted to. Up to you completely. And then they're going to, of course, bond and learn over their powers. They're going to develop their magical abilities, probably in secret, that these magical abilities have always had them stand out in a way, and maybe not for the best. And now they're learning to enjoy these magical abilities, bonding together over them, getting stronger along the way, maybe meeting with some of the things that are going on with the magical world. It's up to you how much of the outer plot of the actual anime you want to bring in or come up with on your own. But it's the sheer fact that they're going to be this sort of developing team. That the point of the team is to train and learn about magical girls, their magical abilities, while, of course, still going to school and mastering their normal lives on the side. It's going to be an interesting balance that you're attempting to develop for your character. Now, the last one I want to talk about today is Nanatsu no Taizai, or the 7 Deadly Sins. So the 7 Deadly Sins were supposedly a legendary group of knights of great power within the region of Britannia. Now, it is said that they attempted a coup against a kingdom. And in the process, though, they were then defeated by the Holy Knights, ousted. But it is also said that after all this was said and done, they were not defeated, only driven away into hiding, that they are still alive somewhere out there. We now go 10 years into the futures, and the Holy Knights in the same kingdom have attempted a coup themselves. They have captured the king. Now the 3rd princess, Elizabeth, she has left the capital and is gone in search of the 7 deadly sins in hopes to unite them again and turn against the Holy Knights who had done battle against them and save her kingdom. Now, if we're looking at the genres for this one, it's definitely an action. When we meet our 7 deadly sins, they are master warriors, powerful knights, ready to battle against these holy knights at a whim. It's also an adventure. We meet them one at a time as Elizabeth continues her quest and begins to gather them. The sins are scattered to the wind, and it's an adventure moving and finding each one of them as they quest. It's also fantasy. They have magical powers, mystical abilities. It's a fantasy world with giants, gods, devils, and of course fairies. The place is filled with, of course, all kinds of magic. And it definitely is fantasy because of it. I rate this one a 5. It was one of my favorites from the season. I watched through it. I'm anticipating more stuff in the future for it, hopefully. And unfortunately, though, I have not read the manga, but I really feel like I should maybe read ahead on it. We'll see if I can do that. But it was a really great one. I definitely recommend this one. Now, if you're using this BESM game, I'm going to recommend 700 points. One of my highest recommendations. The 7 Deadly Sins are incredibly powerful and should reflect that with your point build. Now, there could be some limitations in place of your characters if you want them to, similar to what goes on with the sins when we first meet them in the anime/manga. You could choose that, but once they unlock their true potential, they should hit this right here. Now, as for them, you're going to have your characters, of course, the 7 Deadly Sins. They're going to journey across the land in ways of possibly saving the various kingdoms from the Holy Knights, going against them and opposing their coup, or even going against other threats which might threaten all of Britannia. Things going on with the various devils and gods and fairies that exist out there, which might not be the best of turns, especially on the devil's side. Whatever storyline you actually use is completely up to you, or develop one on your own to have these group of knights adventure against. Now, the thing is, you could also then fill out your roster with NPCs as much as you want, as many NPC knights as you want of sins, or even adding in a couple of characters like Elizabeth if you really wanted to accompany them. The way you're going to form your group is completely up to you too. You could come into the adventure with all of your characters already met. Maybe they're still journeying for more of these sins, the NPC ones you're developing, or they might already be on some kind of quest line with the group that they have. It's hard to say, and it's completely up to you which one you want to determine. Now, also, it's important to note, you could also take the storyline of one meeting others. You could start out with one person playing, and each adventure they go on, introduce another person. So you could start with a session with a single player, and start adding in players every session, that you could have someone ready to add in that session, and another one to add in the next session, until you fill out your group. An interesting take on an adventure that you could easily do. You could easily arrange for this to happen, choosing one person to be the core sin, finding everyone else. Definitely up to you how you want to play that out. But both are very interesting takes on this world. But that's it for today. I introduced you 4 more anime, gave you a little bit of information about them, and of course, after the review, told you how you can use them, gave you suggestions on how you can use them in your BESM games. This doesn't mean you can't use them in other role-playing game systems. Granted, the rules are going to be completely different, and you're going to have to adapt the rules and the character creation to these worlds the way you think is appropriate. That's going to be completely up to you if you want to adapt them. But the settings themselves, and the suggestions I made to those settings, easily fit in so many worlds. Now, as I said, I'm still open for suggestions if you want them also. I will take suggestions from animes, mangas, if you want to do comic book suggestion, a TV series, a movie, a book itself, anything you think you want to learn about how to use in a BESM game or a similar role-playing game system, go ahead and ask me. Put it in the suggestions below. I'm open to going over anyone, even video games too. If you look back, I have a couple of video games that I've even reviewed and given some information about. So I'm always open to adding a little bit more to the repertoire and suggestions from you out there. But regardless, if you have any questions, comments, anything you would say, anything I left out, please leave in the comments below. Please like, share, and subscribe. It shows support for the channel, the Empire, the work I do. If you want to show some extra support, you can always check out my Patreon. Link in the description below. But regardless, until the next time, I bid you farewell.